Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of CNB Bazaar Buzz. You're on the NDTV network. I'm Cyrus Dabar, and as always, we've got a packed show for you today with two big launches and a lovely little test. The new Maruti Suzuki Ertiga. All the details here. We drive on India's newest expressways and the brand new Mercedes-Benz CLS. So let's kick straight things off with our big launch this week. It's the Maruti Suzuki Ertiga, now in its second generation. I was at the launch and I won't say much now. Check it all out. Every single thing that you need to know is right here. It's one of the biggest launches from Maruti Suzuki this year. It's the new 7-seater Ertiga in its second generation. It has now finally come to India after its sort of global debut a couple of months ago in the Indonesian market. Of course, it's a whole new looking car, so it looks much larger. It is larger dimension-wise too. But before we get into all of those bits, let's tell you the pricing of the new Ertiga, because it has been priced rather well. Now, the petrol manual version, a petrol manual first of all comes in four variants: the LXI, the VXI, the ZXI and the ZXI Plus. And the petrol manual starts at 7.44 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi, and the top of the line ZXI Plus goes all the way up to 9.5 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi. The petrol automatic comes only in two variants, the VXI and ZXI. Prices start at 9,18,000 rupees ex-showroom to 9,95,000 rupees. And the diesel, on the other hand, again, four variants, only a manual gearbox option: LDI, VDI, ZDI, ZDI Plus. Prices start at 8,84,000 rupees and end at 10,90,000 rupees ex-showroom Delhi. Now that we're done with that, let me put my phone away. Let me take you around the car and show you the new design language. And let's start with that front end, because of course it looks very different, very inspired, some say, by the Innova Krista. And it does. It's got this big new grille, a lot of chrome there. And the grille, of course, fuses into those headlamps, and it does look very upright, very sort of SUV-esque, even though it is a 7-seater MPV in its truest sense. New headlight projector headlamps too, and on the whole it does look a lot better. It looks a lot sportier with all these new elements too in the bumpers. These little slats that we've seen on the likes of the CLS, on the likes of the Swift too. This looks quite cool, the fog lamps on the bottom here. And just in general, the Ertiga does look much more grown up, much better as a car. 15-inch wheels are standard on all models, 15-inch alloy wheels on this top of the line spec. They aren't the polished ones that you see, the two-tone sort of diamond cut ones that you see on the likes of the Swift and the CLS and Desire, but well, they do look quite cool. And this market, of course, you do need something more sort of normal looking. The side profile is the most iconic of the lot. That's big change. It's got this sort of floating roof structure at the back. And this again, very Toyota Innova Krista like. And again, it does look quite cool. This little swoop going up from the bottom, a very cool little touch that they've put in. And then as we move to the rear, you've got these sort of boomerang tail lamps. Now, this we've of course seen in the likes of Volvo cars in the past, and now this comes in a mass market car like the Ertiga. Again, a very cool touch. In general, the car does look much better as compared to the first generation. Now, it is longer, it is wider, slightly taller too. Wheelbase though remains the same, but all those changes mean there's more space in the interior for passengers, more importantly for luggage at the rear seat too. So let's move to the interior now, and that's of course something that a lot of people spend a lot of time in. So Maruti really has put in a ton of effort with the interior on the new Ertiga. Now, for example, you get this whole new layered dashboard theme. Again, remember, this is seems very inspired by the Innova Krista. So you get this lovely wooden feel here on the dashboard. This does actually feel like it's great quality, although it is still a plastic wooden feel. It isn't cheap. It doesn't feel really cheap and doesn't feel aftermarket. It feels nice and nice with the touch too. Of course, you get that very telltale Maruti central console with that big infotainment system in the front. You get Apple CarPlay, you get Android Auto, you get Mirror Link on this. You get Bluetooth interface for your cell phone. And you also get an auxiliary port down here. So you get your standards, which is on almost every single Maruti car now. You also get climate control, and the one real cool feature that you get, I'm going to call my camera person closer in, is now you get sort of bottle holders or cup holders with a cooled feature here. So you have a little vent here and here where you can cool your little cup, sort of bottle of water or your little can of soda or something. But it does get that as an additional extra. That's something that we didn't know, so that's a cool feature. Apart from that, other sort of small features that stand out, you get a leather wrapped steering wheel, you get a flat bottom steering wheel. So this essentially is the same one from the Desire, but it feels a little more premium because of the leather wrapped sort of finish on it. And the interior in general, sort of brown and beige combination, cloth seats, no leather options. This is the top of the line version, but it doesn't get leather options as standard. You do of course get your height adjustable seat on the driver's side, and you get keyless entry. So you get a start stop button, which is of course on the right side. So standard features across most Maruti cars, but now the Ertiga feels a lot more premium, a lot more sort of upmarket in terms of general feel. Let's get into the back now, because the back is where you get a lot more space. Now, I am going to sort of adjust the seat a little bit, and of course you do get reclining seats on the center, on the second row too. Let me put my seat belt on quickly. Right, so you do get reclining seats on the second row, and although this is a little sort of further back because the front seats aren't adjusted correctly, you do have a lot more leg space here. Of course, you do have that roof-mounted AC vent too, but in general, again, it feels more comfortable because, again, remember, this is a wider car as compared to the previous generation. So fitting 3 people here should not really be an issue. The other big change, sort of first glance, that I feel is that the seat bottom is a lot more comfortable because it's a lot wider. So your under thigh support is now much better as compared to, say, a previous generation Ertiga. This is going to be a really comfortable car in the back seat. And that brings us to the last row of seats, and of course the boot, which is of course the biggest difference when you come to interior space on the car, because of course the car is longer but the wheelbase hasn't changed. The real improvement in space has come in the boot. This is now twice the size and twice the capacity of the first generation car, which means you can actually fit in luggage, because, well, the first generation car was actually piddly small, but this one, well, it can even fit me in. So that's always a good thing. 209 liters of space in the boot here when the seats are sort of folded up. If you fold the seats flat, you get a lot more, and if you fold everything flat, you get over 800 liters of space. And that's a great amount of space in an MPV this size, because you do have sort of tend to store things, and you can actually move house with this kind of a car. That said, the Ertiga now looks better because, well, it's got a whole new design language, it has a whole bunch of features more, and finally it also has a new petrol engine. So let me quickly tell you about all of that. The new Ertiga gets a 1.5-litre petrol engine, basically the same motor that you get on the CLS. The new K15 makes 103 bhp of peak power and 138 Nm of torque, and gets mated to a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed automatic. The diesel, on the other hand, is the same tried and tested 1.3-litre DDIS motor that makes 89 bhp of peak power and 200 Nm of torque. That said, the Ertiga diesel only gets a manual gearbox and no automatic option.
No, not really at the moment. We don't have an automatic transmission for the diesel 1.3 high power, especially for a vehicle like this. For a smaller vehicle, our AMT technology or the AGS technology does work well, and customers are accepting that very well. But for this, currently we don't have. Definitely we understand that requirement of the customer, and we'll work on it.
Both engines have been mated to the SHVS or Suzuki Hybrid Vehicle Systems that offer a start-stop technology and are basically a mild hybrid. This means fuel economy is even better than before. And here are the figures. The Ertiga petrol manual gets 19.34 kilometers per litre, while the petrol automatic gets 18.69 kilometers per litre. The diesel manual, on the other hand, gets a whopping 25.47 kilometers per litre. The Ertiga will be available at Maruti Suzuki's Arena dealership, of which there are about 2,200 across the country. And at a booking amount of 11,000 rupees, bookings are already racking up quickly.
Well, we started bookings about a week ago, and already in less than a week's time we have close to 10,000 bookings. And I'm sure that the kind of, say, stylish model that we have launched, which is, much better on performance, space, comfort, and style. Once the customers see it, and the aggressive pricing that we have done, the pace of bookings is going to, accelerate further.
We did manage to speak to a fair few dealers across the country, and it seems like the petrol models have a greater demand as compared to the diesels, and in general, the higher spec variants like the ZXi or ZDi or ZXi and ZDi Plus have a better demand. In terms of pricing, the new Ertiga massively undercuts the likes of the Mahindra Marazzo, although the Mahindra is of course a larger car. It also goes up against the likes of the Honda BR-V, the Renault Logi, and to some extent even the Mahindra TUV 300 Plus. Welcome back to CNB Bazaar Buzz here on the NDTV network, and now it's time to have a look at yet another launch, albeit from a very different price range. It's the brand new Mercedes-Benz CLS, and I was there to check it out, and here are all the details. Mercedes-Benz is India's largest luxury car maker, and they sell well over 15,000 units a year, and they've already launched 11 cars in 2018, and this is the 12th launch of the year. And of course, this is the last. It is the brand new third generation Mercedes CLS. Now in India, we've had the CLS from the first generation, the beautiful, absolutely gorgeous looking first generation. Of course, second generation got much larger, more sort of angular, more edgy. And now this is the third generation. Now, let me start by saying this is one of the few cars in the world that looks much better in real life, and you actually see the proportions of the car as compared to what you're looking at in the video now, or even some pictures that you've seen on the internet. This is a much better looking car in person. So if you're in the market for a car of this price range, and this incidentally is 84.7 lakhs ex showroom New Delhi. There's just one variant, and of course you have a whole bunch of designer options like those beautiful wheels, the paint shade, the interior, etc. But if you're in the market for something like this, of this price range, please come and look at it in person, because it does look a lot better. That said, let's quickly show you around the car. Let's talk about the car in a little more detail, and we'll sort of get into sort of bits and pieces. Now, the CLS is the first car that debuts this new generation of Mercedes-Benz design. So for example, you get this new front end, very new approach for the headlamps, this new angular, sort of more aggressive, lower set face. We've seen this design now on the A-Class, on the A-Class sedan, and on the GLE, of course, with these sort of headlamps and LED headlamps, of course. But this is the car that actually started it all. But the CLS, well, that's known to be the first four-door coupe in the world, and that was debuted a whole bunch of sort of years ago in the mid-2000s. Now this is third generation, and it really has that same sort of genesis to it. It still has that same design language, so you still get the swooping roofline, the four-door coupe style, and that makes it really pretty. But more pretty stuff at the back. So we're going to swing around and show you a little more of the back, because the back is what's a little more like it or hate it. Now some people do actually think it looks a little strange as compared to the last gen. I actually like the way this looks. So very soupy, very sleek. And look at how small the boot is, very stubby little boot. And again, that swooping roofline. It's one straight line right from the start there, all the way down to the boot lid. It's really pretty, and it's a car that genuinely, I can't wait to drive and get on the road. That said, let's now move to the interior, because that's where things start to get a little more interesting. Now in very typical Mercedes-Benz fashion, the CLS looks very familiar. You've got the big two freestanding screens right here in the middle of the dashboard. This one is for the infotainment system. Still not a touch screen, it's a normal screen. The control is still here. And of course you've got the big digital instrument cluster like you get on the S-Class. But the overall design of the CLS is just so cool. So you get this sort of rounded off dashboard. You get these AC vents on both sides just sort of protruding from the leather. And then of course you get these jet turbine inspired AC vents. And the cool thing in the CLS is the fact that the ambient lighting actually emanates from the AC vents too. Now of course this is now set to blue, but I can actually change that. I'm going to try and do it now quickly without taking too much of your time. But you can actually change it to a whole bunch of different lighting options. So for example, there we go, ambient lighting. It's got a whole bunch of light options. So you can go purple. Let's select red and see how that looks. And even the AC vents light up red. It's really cool. These sort of small touches is what differentiates an E-Class or an S-Class from something like the CLS, because the CLS, of course, is a lifestyle product as compared to all these mainstay cars. Otherwise, in terms of just sheer quality of everything, fit and finish, exceptional as expected. And as I mentioned, the CLS also gets the designer option, so you can actually customize the interior from a whole range of from options like interior color or trim or seats, or even the sort of materials on the dashboard and center console. Now, this is using an open pore wood. You can actually have a gloss black or maybe even a carbon if you really want to spec one. But it just looks really nice. It looks really well sorted. It's simple without being too gaudy, and it's simple enough to still sort of make it really exciting. It's cool. And so finally, let's get down to what's actually under the bonnet. Now, BS6 is something that Mercedes-Benz has been talking about for a while now, and this of course is a diesel engine. It's the CLS 300D, and that's the only spec that the CLS will be available at launch. They're contemplating a petrol version, and they're contemplating the 53 AMG 2, which of course is a top-of-the-line hybrid. But as of now, it's a 4-cylinder diesel engine, which also is available on the C-Class. 245 horsepower from a 2-litre 4-cylinder diesel, and 500 Newton meters, made it to a 9-speed automatic dual-clutch gearbox, rear-wheel drive as all big Mercs should be. And 0 to 100 is about 6.5 seconds, little under 6.5 seconds, and a top speed of 250 kilometers per hour. That is limited. All in all, though, the car's it's a good performer, considering the fact that that's still a small, tiny little engine, so very fuel efficient. But all in all, at that price point, 84.7 lakh ex-showroom, it does offer a very, very sexy proposition. That's definitely a very, very sexy looking car, and I can't wait to get my hands on it very, very soon, and we will have that review for you very shortly. Now though, for our final story, we decided to do a little bit of an impromptu road trip in the office the other day. The brand new Western Peripheral Expressway in Delhi, the new ring road around Delhi, has finally opened up and is now complete. The Eastern and Western Peripheral Expressways. I decided to take a car and check it out. Here's my report. Every day, thousands and thousands of vehicles enter through Delhi, adding to the traffic and of course to our pollution nightmares. And most of these vehicles aren't even destined for the city. They use the city as a thoroughfare to pass from one side of Delhi to the other. And Delhi desperately needed a sort of ring road, a bypass to go through it. Now, we have not one, but two. The Eastern and the Western Peripheral Expressways. Now, the Eastern one was inaugurated a few months ago. The Western one, though, the one we're at now, as the board suggests, was inaugurated yesterday by our Prime Minister, and we're here to check out all this fresh tarmac and to see how it is, if it's really complete, and of course how much fun it can be for an enthusiastic motorist. The Western Peripheral Expressway is also called the KMP Expressway or the Kundli-Manesar-Palwal, and the Eastern Peripheral Expressway is called the KGP Expressway or Kundli-Manesar-Palwal Expressway. Both sections are about 135 kilometers each, and while the eastern section was inaugurated in May 2018, the new western section was inaugurated just a few days ago by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The combined length of the expressway as a ring road is about 270 kilometers. And while it is a quick way to get from one side of the NCR to another, what it will really do is give about 50,000 vehicles, mostly trucks, an alternate route through the NCR, drastically reducing traffic. The new peripheral expressways are 6-lane highways, and although the road is now open, there's a fair bit of construction still taking place. At several points, we saw fencing being laid out, signboards being erected, and of course, no lighting on most parts. That said, the road surface is fantastic. Now, if I had one complaint about the Western Peripheral Expressway, it was that those bridge gaps are just completely atrocious. There are a lot of bridges, a lot of overpasses and underpasses for agricultural use, for rural roads, etc. on the expressway, and those joints do sort of tend to imbalance the car if you're at the speed limit. Now, speed limit, of course, as I mentioned, 120 kilometers an hour. But if you're over that speed limit, especially if you're in a stiffer car, maybe a sports car, etc., or just something even sort of luxurious, etc., it does tend to sort of unbalance the car, which is, well, a little uncomforting at that speed. And if you're faster than the speed limit, it's even worse because it does sort of throw you off a little bit. Now, of course, newer cars do have that very annoying speed limit beep, like that. Now, coincidentally, that too comes in at 120 kilometers an hour. And the speed limit of the expressway is still 120 kilometers an hour. So it sort of matches up really well. You can hold the car just under that speed limit and really enjoy where you cover really big distances really quickly.
We managed to speak to a few toll operators, and one of them told us that the average truck traffic is already steadily increasing. According to him, an average of about 5,000 to 8,000 trucks are already using the expressway, apart from several private cars. That said, if you do consider getting onto the expressway, be warned. Fuel up in advance, as there is no active fuel station and the only option is to get off the road and look for a fuel bunk. Other emergency services such as an ambulance or a crane too don't seem to be active as of now. That said, when you do drive on the expressway, a few things stand out. The massive farmlands of Haryana, the mighty Aravalli mountain range, and of course, some very interesting signboards and mini monuments on the side of the road. And by the way, if you were wondering, the toll on the eastern section is about 215 rupees for private vehicles and 1,380 rupees for full-sized multi-axle commercial vehicles. Toll booths on the western side have yet to become operational.
So let's sum up this whole expressway experience. While the road itself has been thrown open to the public and the road surface is, touch wood, brilliant, considering the fact that it is tarmac and there are no potholes just yet. And all props to everybody who's actually made the road. There are a lot of things that are still incomplete. This is not a fully operational expressway just yet. For example, the toll booth behind me isn't operational and there are still people there putting up road markings, etc. Now, every single toll booth on the Western Peripheral Expressway is still unoperational, which essentially means that this is a free-for-all of sorts. And we do hope that doesn't end up in people going really fast or doing stupid things. But, well, it might just happen. That said, as an experience, it is great for a motorist, and of course as a mode of transport, it does cut down on pollution, it does cut down on travel time, it does mean trucks can bypass Delhi and get from one end of Delhi to the other really quickly, and that of course is a great thing for the country at large. As fun as those expressways are to drive on, I do hope it really helps reducing that pollution that Delhi and NCR in general faces with all that heavy vehicle traffic going right through the center of it. That said, that's all we have time for this week on the show. As always, remember, wear your helmets if you're on a two-wheeler, whether you're riding the two-wheeler or as a pillion, and wear that seatbelt if you're in a car, whether as a front seat passenger or as a rear seat, or even the third row seats as we have on the Ertiga. Thank you so much for watching and see you next week.